Hello everybody, my name is Nerdy Lover and welcome to another episode of our football betting series here on YouTube, Premier League edition. Let's not hide away from the fact that last weekend was a pretty bad one for ourselves and a pretty bad one for the four major football teams we selected. But that was then, this is now. We have a fresh week ahead of us and some fresh selections to make. But before we get into those selections, I would encourage you to, if you find these tips helpful and or profitable, please drop a like down below and subscribe as well. We're trying to grow this channel out a little bit. So without further ado, let's jump into the four selections for this weekend, the 11th and 12th of February. Before we get to the weekend, we do kick off today's episode with a bit of midweek action. It is the rescheduled game from the 8th week of the Premier League, as 4th place Manchester United host 15th place Leeds. And despite Casemiro seeing red, Manchester United managed to hold on against Crystal Palace to win that game 2-1. This does mean that the Red Devils have won 4 games consecutively in the Premiership. And Manchester United score 1.6 goals per game from 2.6 key chances created. Defensively, they're doing okay, 1.3 against and 8 clean sheets in 20 league appearances. Leeds themselves also come into this game following a win, a 1-0 victory over Nottingham Forest. This does mean that they are unbeaten in 3 and only have lost 1 in their last 7. Things are starting to click here with Jesse Marsch and Leeds, but they do need to add a few more wins to the board. Nevertheless, Leeds score 1.4 goals per game from 2.1 key chances created. Defensively, could be improved upon, 1.7 goals against, just the 4 clean sheets in 19 appearances. Looking at the head-to-head record, Manchester United managed to win both games last season with an aggregate score of 9-3. This includes a 5-1 win in this very fixture. United are in a bit of a purple patch of form and should be able to win this game comfortably, especially with Rashford starting. Manchester United to win in our first bet. Moving on to the weekend games now, and we start off with 12th place Crystal Palace hosting 6th place Brighton, and Crystal Palace, as touched upon, lost 2-1 to Manchester United. There was a little bit of hope after Casemiro gets sent off, but Crystal Palace could only salvage the 1 goal against a 10-man United side. This does mean that there's no win in 6 for Patrick Vieira, and Crystal Palace score 0.9 goals per game from 1.2 key chances created. Defensively, 1.4 goals against and 5 clean sheets in 21 appearances. The away side Brighton left it late to win against Bournemouth by 1-0. This does mean the Seagulls are now unbeaten in their last 6 games, scoring 1.9 goals per game from 2.8 key chances created. Defensively, 1.4 goals against and 6 clean sheets in 20 league matches. When we look at the head-to-head record, both games last season finished 1-1, but the underlying numbers do tell us a little bit of a story. Brighton came out on top when it comes to all major win predicting factors. When it comes to possession, we're looking at a 57% rate, on average outshooting Crystal Palace 13-5. Shots on target comes a little bit closer, Brighton winning that 4-3. And key chances created per 90, an average of 2.5 for Brighton to Crystal Palace's 1.5. It does appear that these 1-1 draws were more due to clinical finishing on behalf of Crystal Palace and perhaps a bit of wastefulness from Brighton. These average statistics should bear out, so I do think we're going to be leaning towards Brighton here today. Furthermore, we look at Brighton's strong away record, as they do have the joint third best away record in the league, winning 50% of their road matches. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, are mid-table when playing in front of their home fans in South London. Brighton to win for me for a full stake. We're going to remain in London for the next selection. 8th place Fulham host 13th place Nottingham Forest, and Fulham managed to pull together a good defensive performance to take a point from Chelsea in their last match. It was a 0-0 draw, and it does mean that the hosts have no win in their last 3 Premier League matches, but we do have to qualify themselves that these games are against Newcastle, Spurs and Chelsea, so Fulham have done very well to avoid defeat in these games. Statistically, Fulham average 1.5 goals per game from 1.7 key chances per 90. Defensively, they concede at a rate of 1.4 goals against and 6 clean sheets in 22 league matches. As touched upon in a previous selection, Forest did lose 1-0 against Leeds. This does mean that they have failed to win in each of their last 4, including a 5-0 aggregate loss to Manchester United in the Carabao Cup semi-finals. But when we look at league action though, Forest are scoring 0.8 goals per game from 1.5 key chances created per 90. Defensively, they concede almost 2 goals per game with 6 clean sheets in 21 appearances. When we look at the head-to-head record, Fulham won the encounter between these sides earlier in the season by 3-2. And even though they were away from home, Fulham managed to dominate the ball, taking more shots and having more shots on target. However, it was Forest that was clinical, winning that XG battle 1.41 to 0.94. With better underlying numbers, even during a downturn of form, I do like Fulham to pick up a win here in front of their home fans. A final point to push me over this line is to see that Nottingham Forest have a relegation-worthy away form, sitting 17th in the table with just 1 win from 10 away trips. Fulham to win in selection number 3. Our fourth and final selection of the weekend sees 14th place Leicester hosting 5th place Spurs. And Leicester managed to win last time out against Aston Villa by 4-2 in a eccentric and exciting back-and-forth game. This does mean that Leicester have broken a 5-game streak without a win in Premier League games. And the Foxes score 1.5 goals per game from 1.8 key chances created per 90. They do concede at a clip of 1.8, which would need improving, but 6 clean sheets in 21 isn't anything to laugh at. And the away side Spurs managed to pick up a win against Manchester City, with Harry Kane beating the Spurs' all-time goal-scoring record. Spurs have had inconsistent form, but they did pick up that win against City, and Leicester's defence is quite leaky, as just discussed. So when we look at the stats for Spurs and see 1.9 goals per game from 2 key chances created per 90, we're feeling pretty positive. Their defensive record could use some improvement at 1.5 goals against with 6 clean sheets in 22. But when we look at the head-to-head record, Spurs managed to win both games last year, as well as the meeting in September earlier this season. Spurs managed to win each of the last 4 encounters. They've won 5 in the last 6 games straight up, and we've seen over 2.5 goals in 7 of the last 8 games. Now, I am leaning towards Spurs a little bit here, simply because Leicester can't keep the ball out of the back of the net. But with the Lily Whites looking forward to their match against AC Milan in the midweek, I don't think a win is guaranteed. One thing I do like here is goals. No clean sheet for Leicester in each of their last 6 Premier League games, with over 2.5 goals coming in 60% of these matches. And for Spurs, this number also sits at 60%. I think over 2.5 goals is the key, and if you're really brave, you could take Spurs to win 2-1 at about 7 or 8-1. Over 2.5 goals in the Leicester-Spurs game is going to wrap up today's episode. There we have it, 4 selections. Starting in the midweek with Manchester United against Leeds, we're taking Manchester United to win at home, odds of 0.5, £20 stake to return 10. And then we have a trio of 3 o'clock kickoffs, starting with Crystal Palace versus Brighton. We're going to be taking the away side at odds of 11 over 10, £20 stake to return 22.40. Staying in London, we're going to be taking Fulham against Nottingham Forest, about even money, £20 stake to return 19.80. And finishing up with over 2.5 goals in the Leicester Spurs game, odds of 0.85, £20 stake to return 17. So in the second week of February, we're going to be risking £80 across 4 bets to hopefully pick up as much as 69.20 in our goals to redeem ourselves from last week. Will we do so? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to tune into next episode. But if you have made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below. My name's been Nerdy Lover, and as always, have yourself a lovely day.